alleged conspiracy problems. So we could be talking about Biden administration officials that could be getting pulled into this. And it could get all the way up to President Obama. I mean, having now really read in on this case, there's a real question about whether Barack Obama's about to have the same kind of trouble that Jack Smith caused for Donald.
I'm going to go to the next topic here, which is Adam's top topic, talking about Obama saying every man needs a gay friend. So Obama goes
Barack,
on his wife's podcast, okay? And they're sitting there having this conversation, and it opens, they covered a lot of different things. Right off the bat, they talked about the divorce. Hey, aren't we supposed to be getting a divorce and all this stuff? Just tell me.
When Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David entered the conversation, they brought with them a sharp, thought-provoking critique of President Obama's legacy. Rather than offering blind praise or political rhetoric, they challenged the public narrative, with clear-eyed analysis questioning the contrast between the inspirational speeches and the real-world results. They highlighted unfulfilled promises, media portrayal, and the lasting impact of his administration, encouraging viewers to look past the surface. It wasn't an attack, it was a moment of honest reflection, where no scripted line or cheering crowd could deflect the tough questions. What emerged was a powerful exchange that pushed audiences to think deeper and reassess long-held assumptions.
That one day, the intelligence community under Barack Obama was ready to come out and say that the Russians did not interfere in the 2016 election and really had no part in it, and that whole thing was kind of bullshit. Then Barack Obama pulled them all into the White House, they had a big meeting, and then literally the next day, they were like, Russia interfered to help Trump, and leaked it to all the reporters, Washington Post.
But think, you're Obama, okay? First go from the Obama's lens. Okay. Obamas are sitting there having to hear people compare Kamala to Obama. Crazy. Do you know what that does to Obama? Do you know Obama is sitting there saying, shut the that's what Obama's saying internally. Yeah.
Barack Obama has transitioned into a phase of his post-presidency where his presence feels more like that of a global commentator than a former world leader. These days, he often appears in polished interviews and public talks, sharing reflections on leadership and hope. However, critics argue that while the world faces complex challenges, his focus on image and influence sometimes overshadows deeper political engagement. Some feel that despite his powerful rhetoric, the disconnect between his speeches and political follow-through has grown more noticeable. In a time demanding accountability and action, this contrast has sparked renewed conversations about legacy and responsibility.
Knowing that there are divorce rumors and, she's not showing up for him, whether it's at the Jimmy Carter funeral or the Trump inauguration or the basketball game he just went to in LA, when visiting their daughters and then dinner with the daughters was not there. Here she is talking about it. If it were me, I would say something nice about him. I would say he's just so charming. It was meant to be. I knew he could heal the earth in the way he did. There was only one person who could do it, and it was my husband, Barack Obama, whatever.
Just when it seemed like Barack Obama might quietly shift into a reflective documentary-style post-presidency, Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David reignited the conversation with a sharp, unapologetic critique. Their commentary peeled back the polished surface of his legacy, raising tough questions about the policies and decisions that have often been overlooked. Kelly, known for navigating intense media scrutiny, and Bet-David, who approaches interviews with razor-sharp focus, didn't hold back. Together, they examined Obama's record with a level of scrutiny that sparked serious debates, suggesting it was time for a closer, more honest look at the impact he left behind.
Obama's office spokesperson, Patrick Rodenbush, great first name, rejected the office of the Director of National Intelligence. Reports claim that senior Obama administration officials orchestrated the Russia collusion hoax, stating, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. And he called the allegations outrageous and ridiculous, a weak attempt of...
Let's be honest, while Barack Obama captivated the public with eloquence and style, critics argue that his presidency often relied more on powerful messaging than measurable action. His speeches, filled with poetic optimism and carefully crafted sound bites, inspired millions but left some questioning the substance behind the words. Phrases like hope and change stirred emotions, Yet many felt the real change was in how skillfully he managed to avoid direct accountability. For some, it seemed as though charisma took the place of concrete leadership, leaving behind a legacy that sparks as much debate as it does admiration.
Because the boss has told them to get back to him with an assessment that says Russia did interfere and Russia meant to help Trump. And so where do they turn? They don't have it, except in the Steele dossier, which we now know was totally made up. It's been entirely discredited. That was the best evidence they had.
While global crises unfolded, Barack Obama seemed more focused on curating playlists and offering polished reflections on complexity, often packaged in his signature eloquence. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly offered a pointed response, clearly unimpressed by the applause he continues to receive for speeches that, in her view, carry more style than substance. To some observers, his remarks can come across as lofty reminders for others to improve, without acknowledging his own role in the challenges at hand. It's this contrast between presentation and accountability that continues to stir strong reactions and spark intense public debate.
For me, if I were able to run for a third term, Michelle would divorce me. So, so it's useful that I don't have that choice to make.
I know you have to lead.
But Michelle was never wild about politics. Michelle once explained to me, I try to organize my life not to have a lot of mess around. And politics is just a big mess.
Patrick Bet-David didn't hesitate to challenge Barack Obama's carefully maintained image, cutting through the polished public persona to raise questions many have avoided. He dismissed the media hype, celebrity appeal, and high-profile deals, diving directly into issues like selective engagement, media influence, and what he views as a pattern of avoiding direct accountability. In Bet-David's view, Obama has mastered the art of appearing above the freevan in situations where his decisions played a significant role. Critics like him argue that Obama often speaks on crises with the calm detachment of an observer, despite being a key player in the events themselves. And yet, despite the Democratic Party facing substantial electoral losses during his tenure, nearly 1,000 seats at various levels, he remains a central voice in shaping its future strategy. For some, this raises the question, does charisma and legacy outweigh results, or is it time to reassess what leadership and success really mean?
Tell me what place Trump wouldn't go to on media where they would trash him. Where would he not go to? Would he not go to CNN? Would he not go to MSNBC? Would he not go to Jimmy Fallon? Would he not go to Jimmy Kimmel? Would he not go to? Would he not? He went everywhere, right? Now, let me flip this on you. How many times have you seen Obama, Clinton, Hillary, any of those guys,
Biden,
go on Fox ever? How many times? The answer is never.
Megyn Kelly offered a fierce critique of the overwhelmingly favorable media coverage Barack Obama received during his presidency, coverage that often overlooked deeper issues like drone policy, the Benghazi controversy, IRS investigations, and more. She argued that instead of rigorous journalism, much of the media presented a carefully packaged narrative that emphasized style over scrutiny. Patrick Bet-David echoed these sentiments, viewing Obama's presidency as a highly successful brand campaign, marked by symbolism and eloquence, but, in his view, lacking in consistent accountability. He questioned how a leader could be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize early in his presidency and still preside over significant military actions abroad. On the economic front, critics contend that Obama's approach to recovery prioritized large financial institutions, many of which were central to the crisis, leaving everyday Americans feeling left behind. Together, Kelly and Bet-David opened up a wider debate on whether public image and speeches can substitute for tangible leadership and long-term impact.
Barack Obama planned, a lot of this is from Racket News, which everybody should read directly, Matt's group. Intel officials planned a December 9th, 2016 presidential daily brief, which is always from the Intel community for the president, letting him know what's happening in the world. They planned a PDB that would say, foreign adversaries, quoting here, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election.
While Wall Street saw massive gains during Obama's presidency, many critics argue that everyday Americans felt little of that recovery. Unemployment numbers improved, but questions remained about the quality and stability of those jobs. Obama often spoke about rebuilding the middle class, yet his close ties to major tech and financial executives led some to question where his true priorities lay. Megyn Kelly highlighted how, despite inspiring rhetoric on key issues like police reform, racial justice, and immigration, tangible action was inconsistent or, in some cases, ran counter to expectations. For example, deportation rates reached historic highs under his administration, sparking criticism from both sides of the political spectrum. And when it came to healthcare, many felt the Affordable Care Act didn't go far enough, delivering a compromise that benefited large insurance and pharmaceutical companies more than the average citizen. Critics argue that Obama had the political momentum to enact meaningful change, but instead focused on preserving broad appeal, resulting in modest policy gains rather than transformative reform.
If maybe this is a way America can hear me at this moment. Go back to that day 10 years ago, what I think binds it together, all these different strands, a case upholding healthcare, a case declaring same-sex marriage part of our constitutional protections, of mourning. I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking.
Patrick Bet-David didn't shy away from confronting what he saw as a presidency more focused on managing public perception than enacting deep, lasting justice. He pointed to moments like President Obama's visit to Flint or various disaster zones where symbolic gestures sometimes overshadowed long-term solutions. Critics argue that while Obama projected empathy and leadership on camera, the follow-through often lagged behind. Despite that, his public image has remained remarkably strong, with many viewing him through the lens of admiration rather than critical reflection. This, some say, is less about policy success and more about a powerful legacy shaped by charisma and nostalgia. After leaving office, Obama transitioned into producing media and speaking engagements, which sparked further debate about his post-presidency priorities. Megyn Kelly, with her deep experience covering political power structures, challenged what she sees as a disconnect between Obama's messaging and his record, especially on issues like executive authority and government accountability. Both she and Bet-David raised questions about how long admiration should shield any leader from meaningful scrutiny.
Night, they wake up. Oh my God, Michelle, bed is wet. What, babe? I'm right here. Babe, is it already November? Did they already announce he's president? No, babe. Today's the October 25th. Oh my God, babe. Oh my God, please hold my hand. Please hold my hand. Please hold my hand. Oh my God, it's not here yet. Every night they're going to sleep, wetting their...
Obama's administration, critics argue, wasn't just flawed, it was a masterclass in polished inaction. Decisions that many saw as passive were often framed as strategic restraint, and compromises were portrayed as wise statesmanship. He often remained silent on pressing issues, yet still received widespread applause. But the consequences of those choices didn't retire with him, they continued to shape national discourse and policy. Patrick Bet-David cuts through the post-presidency glow, questioning the enduring appeal of Obama's cool, composed persona. To him, Obama has become more of a symbolic figure than a decisive leader frequently called upon to inspire donors or distract from deeper issues within the Democratic Party. While his public image remains smooth and reassuring, Bet-David sees it as a carefully curated mask, one that conceals unresolved political and institutional challenges. From expanded surveillance powers to a party still struggling with unity and direction, critics suggest that Obama's true legacy is more complex than the hopeful narrative he often presents in speeches.
Fuel on the fire that there's a potential, maybe a divorce or some sort of rockiness going on in the Obamas relationship. They both posted these mirrored, very choreographed Valentine's Day messages on X, but he was just seen at an LA, the basketball team, the Clippers, thank you, game without her. And then on Tuesday, he was spotted eating out at a fancy dinner in Sherman Oaks with his both daughters, Malia and Sasha, but again, no Michelle, according to Tia.
Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David didn't just offer criticism, they challenged the narrative that has surrounded Barack Obama for years. They looked past the polished public persona, the best-selling memoirs, and the cultural branding, and asked the questions many avoid. Is Obama still leading? Or is he simply commenting from a distance while enjoying the rewards of his legacy? For them, the former president has become more of a narrator than a driver of change, speaking about leadership, empathy, and climate action, while maintaining a lifestyle that to some, feels disconnected from those very messages. This contrast between words and actions is what Kelly and Bette David sought to expose. They argue that the public hasn't been misled by malice, but by masterful presentation. What remains, they suggest, isn't bitterness, it's clarity. A realization that behind the elegance and the eloquence, there may be a gap between the image and the impact. And in voicing that, they sparked an important conversation about legacy, accountability, and what real leadership truly demands.
Here's Trump just now. He was just caught on camera saying, well, we'll play both of them in succession. Let her rip.
Witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that.
Barack Obama is often remembered as a figure who inspired with vision and calm. But critics like Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David argue that behind the polished speeches and poised demeanor was a presidency that often left the harder decisions unresolved. They describe him as a leader who promised change, projected confidence, and navigated complexity but ultimately stepped away without fully addressing the long-term consequences of his policies. Today, he remains a prominent voice not as a policymaker, but as a commentator. And while his words still earn applause, critics question whether the admiration is for his actual impact or for the refined presentation of it. They highlight the contrast between Obama's influence and his accountability, arguing that his post-presidency presence sometimes distracts from the unfinished work left behind. From economic disparity to global instability, the challenges persist while the rhetoric remains polished. Kelly and Bet-David asked the tough question, what exactly are we still celebrating? The speeches, the symbolism, or the idea that change was promised, yet often delayed or diluted? In their view, legacy isn't defined by eloquent reflections after the fact but by actions taken when it mattered most. And, as time passes, they suggest, the gap between perception and reality continues to grow, inviting a deeper, more honest evaluation of what leadership truly means.